As water is one of the key cornerstones of human flourishing, past and current events to implement new public management reforms in the water utility sector are issues worthy of further analysis and investigation in the field of public administration. The new public management approaches employed have included wholesale privatization and the use of concession contracts. Unfortunately, these radical reforms have failed to consider various relevant factors such as the highly monopolistic nature of the water utility sector and the socio-economic circumstances faced by a significant portion of the population in the jurisdictions in question. Wholesale privatization, according to policymakers implementing the reforms, would allow consumers to enjoy lower water tariffs as private companies have an incentive to lower costs in order to maximize profits. This, however, fails to account for the fact that water utilities are often natural monopolies. Due to the exorbitant infrastructure costs associated with water provision, this limits the number of firms in the industry and creates a situation in which there is often only one local provider in a given geographic area. As a result, water service providers exert significant market power and can therefore manipulate water tariffs without significant changes in water demand. The change in ownership structure from public to private is completely irrelevant to determining the overall economy of water services, as the now privately owned water service providers will still face the same market structure as it did prior to privatization. Therefore, the firm will still have little incentive to lower water tariffs. Consequently, changes in the ownership structure have actually failed to produce lower water tariffs. In fact, the opposite occurred, as privately owned water utilities often charge higher tariff rates and therefore decrease the economy of water services. Another major approach that has been widely employed is the use of concession contracts. Privately owned water management companies sign contracts with the government, pledging to increase water coverage through infrastructure expansion and decrease tariffs. These goals, as mandated in the contract, however, were often achieved behind schedule or went unfulfilled, as they failed to account for the socio-economic circumstances of many of its customers, as a significant proportion of the population in urban areas in Bolivia, such as La Paz and El Alto, live below the poverty line. The projected revenues from these segments of the population were less than the expected operation costs associated with water delivery. As the water utility sector is characterized by relatively low rates of return and relatively high capital cost, the concessionaires substantially raised water tariffs and connection fees to maintain profitability. As a result, initial improvements in effectiveness through increased water coverage for users, particularly the low-income segments of the population, were later reversed by the increased barriers to water accessibility resulting directly from higher tariffs. The Bolivian scenario ultimately delivered indeterminate results in terms of effectiveness and decreased economy. Not only can the expected results fail to be achieved due to the lack of attention given to the economic status of many residents, but indeterminate results can also occur due to the absence of an effective and independent regulatory regime. In Buenos Aires, Argentina, the concessionaire regularly negotiated in order to have disproportionate increases in water tariffs and connection fees approved. Despite the objections of the local water and sewage service regulator, the federal government of Argentina promoted the interests of the concessionaire by approving rate increases far above the inflation rate. Despite such generous flows of revenue, there is consistent underinvestment in infrastructure. However, the inability of the local regulator to promote the public interest and put in place punitive measures resulted in the continuation of such negligible outcomes. The largely indeterminate results therefore serve as a cautious reminder regarding the continued implementation of new public management reforms in the face of increased water scarcity and demand throughout the world.